People are bad. Imagine this. Scene 1. It's a beautiful morning and you go to a nearby park for a walk. You see your neighbor at a distance and you say, "Good morning," to him. But he just doesn't reply. He doesn't even look at you. To be continued. Scene 2. You're standing next to a very old lady in a bus packed with passengers. There are no empty seats. There's a young man seated right next to the old lady, but he doesn't offer his seat to her. To be continued. Scene 3. You have a colleague who always gets to do the morning shift, when everyone else, including you, has to do the rotational shift. That's sad. Familiar? To be continued. Scene 4. Your vehicle stops at a traffic signal. An old man walks up to you and begs for money. But you hesitate to give him money because you've heard this begging business is actually a racket. To be continued. Do any of these scenes sound familiar?
Yes.
Yes. Most people jump to conclusions based on what they see or hear. They think your neighbor in the park was arrogant. Who was the second person? The young man happened to be very selfish and disrespectful because he didn't offer his seat. Come on. In scene 3, your colleague, who always gets to do the morning shift, gets undue advantages, right? However, let me tell you who these people really are. Your neighbor had earphones on. He didn't see you or hear you. In scene 2, when the young man's destination arrived, you saw that he picked his crutches from under the seat. He was physically challenged. Or in other words, differently able. He couldn't have offered his seat to the old lady, right? In scene 3, the lady who gets to do the morning shift actually has a terminally ill husband. She works in the office in the mornings and takes care of her husband, her children, and her in-laws in the evenings. And the beggar in the 4th scene was genuinely a needy person. Did you investigate enough to declare that he could have been a part of a racket? No, we didn't, right? So were you one of those most people who jumped to conclusions?
Yes.
Sometimes. Wrong ideas tend to creep into our minds like worms and grow there. They tend to infect us with negative thoughts, doubts, and suspicions. I read somewhere that the Native Americans even have a term for this phenomenon. They call it vertigo. It's a worm-like mind parasite that changes the mental perspective of a person. You always have the option to assume positive intent. When the CEO of PepsiCo in the New Year was asked about the greatest leadership advice that she had ever been given, she said, "Whatever anybody says or does, always assume positive intent." When you apply this advice, you lead a stress-free life, a happier life. Let me tell you how I applied this advice. I live in Waguli. It's a village. When I go for my morning runs with my cap and my dark glasses on, and when I go for my morning runs, people stare at me suspiciously. And they wonder, who is this bearded man and why is he running? Funny. Now I have the choice of thinking that I'm a victim of stereotyping. But I apply the advice, and instead I assume positive intent. I tell myself, these people are looking at me because probably they are getting inspired to do morning runs by looking at me and start doing their runs and become healthier, right? You never know. That's how you train yourself. Whenever you feel that you are stuck in a situation, a scenario which makes you want to judge someone, remind yourself, you have absolutely no clue what battle the other person might be fighting. An Allscripts cab driver used to come for my pickup every day. He would just never smile. If there were to be a competition for the grumpiest person, he would get first prize. But I told myself, maybe he's going through a painful phase in his life that I'm not aware of. Leave him alone. Now let me conclude by telling you a story. In the marketplace of a small town, there was a man lying dead at the roadside. The residents knew who the dead person was, but all they did was look at the body and walk away. A tourist happened to walk by this road, and he was shocked to see how the people ignored the dead body. He asked the resident, "Who's this dead person?" The resident replied that this person is a drunkard. And drunkards were looked down upon in that town. They were disliked because drunkards used to cause a lot of nuisance over there. Now this tourist couldn't bear to see the orphan body. He asked a resident to help him carry this dead man to his house. When the dead man's wife saw his lifeless body, she began weeping. She said, "You were a good person. You were a pious person." Now the tourist was bewildered. How is he pious when the people disliked him so much that they didn't even care he was dead? The lady replied that every night my husband would go out there, buy as much alcohol as he could, bring it home and pour it all down the drain. He would then say, "Today I've saved my town's youth from the evil of alcoholism a little." It is said, never judge a book by its cover. Ultimately, the choice to control your thoughts is with you. And remember, people are not bad. Thank you.